Ms. Dow? Donna? Donna? It's noon, ma'am. Good afternoon. It's Monday, June the 13th. I'm sorry, June the 13th, 2022. This is the City of Denison Historic Preservation Board meeting. Citizens may speak on items listed on the agenda. A request to speak card should be completed and returned to the city clerk upon arrival prior to the board reaching to the public comments section of the agenda. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise required by law. Comments related to the public hearings listed below will be heard when the specific hearing starts. Item A, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on approving the minutes from the meeting held on May the 3rd, 2022.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed, same. There being none, then the motion is carried. Item B, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to make changes to the facade at 401 West Main, item number 2022-008H. Ms. Val?
Okay, you have had this case presented to you before, and the applicant received approval to remove the mansard awning. Then they were given approval to paint and clean the building, and it was unclear if the side was included, and so we need to just clarify that in the records that the side could be included in that. I know there was discussion on it, but not, it wasn't in the motion. And then the request is to add the fabric awnings over the window openings and the door. And the signage will be in a separate application. The signage was in the images that we had, and so it's still in the images we had, but it isn't to consider that.
Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this?
Well, let me see what.
I'll give you the exact dimensions of the deal if you don't know what's showing up here on the deal. My name's David Spindle. I live at 1307 South Lane in Denison. All right, the 3 awnings over the windows. If we'll go to that picture, the drawing. Okay. That there, the 3 awnings over the windows, the 2 in front on the side, those are 11 foot in width. The depth is 2 foot 6 inches. That's from the building out. And the height is 2 foot 11 inches. That's the profile on the building. Okay, those 3, you can see that kind of depicts probably what it'd look like. Still not probably quite to scale there, and they're all 8 foot off the sidewalk, just as required by ordinance. And all of this meets our ordinance or meets or exceeds what's in our regulations for awnings. The awning over the entrance is 14 foot wide. It is depth of 4 foot, so from the building out it's 4 foot, and the height is 4 foot 8 inches, 54 inches. So that's the profile of the building, and again, all these meet the requirement that's in the deal. You can have the profile of the building actually be 6 foot, so these are well within the 6 foot range on that. So they're all black, and again, they're all 8 foot off the sidewalk as required.
Any questions or comments? Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak on this matter? Mr. Kai?
I want to speak. If there's any other questions that come up, be glad.
Okay. So, let me get this straight now. What exactly are we being asked to approve? Just the black awnings?
Four awnings.
One on this side,
Yeah.
window as well.
There was a question about painting the side of the building too. I don't know if that's part of this or not.
Let's just address the awnings at this point.
Okay,
And we'll, once we get approval or denial on that, we'll move forward
okay,
on the side.
very good. There being no questions, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the awnings at 401 West Main Street.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. There being none, then the motion is carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Item C, receive report.
Did you,
Do you wanna look at that side
Yeah.
wall?
there we go. That is,
Did I miss something
That's-
here?
no, it's the red and the black stripe. That is proposed to be white. It's already painted, and it really would look better with the white to continue the color scheme.
Whatever the owner wants to do.
Okay, so do you want to put that in a motion?
Any discussion? Any motions? Someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to paint the side white on 401.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. There being none, the motion is carried.
I have a question for Maddie. Do I remember in the last meeting you said you might be thinking about doing a mural on that side at some point?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'm working with, Hander right now, Brian Hander, he's sent me some stuff for, from Cassidy, and we're kind of talking, so we're kind of, want to paint that white, but we're kind of holding off to see right now what.
Kind of what the mural is going to be and what the backdrop you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice.
Thank you, Maddie.
Very nice.
Anything else on it? Okay, item C, receive report, hold a discussion, and take action on the request to repair and paint the facade of 405 West Main. Item numbers 2022-0078.
So the building at 405 was one of the ones that had in a row that had the mansard awning. Yes, and it was tabled for the colors. You wanted to look at it because of the white building next to it. And so they have chose, whoops. Those colors. So their preferred color would be soulful gray. And I think Mr. Spindle has a color swatch of it.
There are two colors that were requested. One of them's a soulful gray and the other's ashen gray. So those are the two colors. This one's just a little richer, got a little more beige in it to me.
Okay, that's not the color that's painted on that building already, is it?
No,
Was there kind of a lack of communications between you and the contractor, or?
not me. I was just facilitating this. It wasn't,
Well, it wasn't approved, and you went ahead and started painting it.
I understand, but it wasn't communicated to the contractor. It wasn't communicated to me till later that it was actually tabled because why, and I apologize for not showing up. I got tied up in a personal thing, and it did get started before it was communicated to the contractor, but I wasn't I haven't negotiated with the contractor on this.
Okay.
The colors or anything. I just told the original was snowed in, which I understand there's not approved colors, but it was within the suggested colors. So,
It was also my understanding, based on the drawing that I think was prepared by Mr. Shearer, this shows that that brick at the top of the facade was to remain unpainted. It's unfortunately now painted.
It was painted before, if you look at it, because the grout and all's the same color as the brick. So it had been painted a very lighter orange, because it looks different than,
So it still says it was to remain
yeah, I
as is.
understand. And that was lack of communication too. So now we're just at the point of, these are the colors y'all would like to see painted. There's a suggestion of the grays, and these are the two that are there. We can't undo what's at the top without power washing or destroying the brick probably, so we're with the sulfur gray or the ashen gray. Apparently he prefers the sulfur, is that right?
Yeah, he preferred the sulfur.
What's that, Donna?
He preferred the sulfur.
I have a question, please.
Use your microphone.
Sorry, so you can hear. I have a question, please.
Okay.
Now that the brick has started to been painted, and
Mhm.
because we've got two different textures, if you will, brick and stucco, I'm thinking maybe two different colors, and I had spoke to Donna about this as well, that rather than do the whole thing in one color gray, maybe do two different color grays and offset it, if you see what I'm saying? Or does he just want to do the whole thing gray now, the brick as well?
I haven't talked to him together. You know, the only thing I'd suggest if it was me, if he wants to do the whole sofa, those little indentions at the top, maybe put those in black like the column's gonna be.
Do something a
And
little
it
different,
would-
just to
it
kind of
would change
offset it.
Offset it, but I still don't think that's not that big of a area to have a
To
gray.
have to worry
Because you're
about.
gonna have some black coming up, and he actually is gonna want the flat awning will be black, so it'll break some of it up. So I don't think it's a big deal that they're all painted gray, in my opinion. That's just my little
Okay,
opinion.
You got black trim.
thank you.
Yeah,
black
it'll be,
cap,
and there's black trim at the top,
the metal cap. Yeah.
metal cap's black.
Sorry, sir, could you pull that microphone?
Sorry. Seems like this thing's closer than it usually is, so I know they could hear me.
It's mainly for the recording.
I understand, thank
Any more questions or comments?
Yes, on the column that got painted black,
It'll be
that was
painted.
not approved to be painted black, is that going to remain black, or are they gonna do that gray?
I think to break up the buildings, it was gonna be black, is that right?
Because it's technically
Half and half?
Half and half, and you
They were
can't,
trying to trim it out and make it look clean.
right.
Because there's no way to really paint it half and half and it looked normal. It didn't look very good when we tried it.
Donna, is there a reason we have a photo of Domino's facade in here?
Yeah, that is a separate, that's mainly for informational purposes.
Okay. So this is what the building was to look like after it's
Yes.
painted?
That was the slide I was trying to get to a while ago, but I couldn't make
Okay.
it work.
And the column is going to be painted black or?
Black. The one between 401 and 405 will be black.
What are you going to do with the burgundy tile that's down the other side and across the bottom?
Nothing, it stays exactly
Just
like it is.
stay,
Stays as is?
stay as it is.
That is actually a vintage architectural element.
Right.
We want to keep that.
Yeah, I knew that. Any other questions, comments? Can I have a motion, please? Okay, you looking for it?
I move to approve the painting of 405, West Main in the soulful gray with black trim.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. There being none, then the motion's carried.
The reason I put dominoes in there is for an example of the awning, and that is what they have asked to be their awning at 405.
All right, thank you.
Did we approve, are we approving that today as well?
No.
Okay, that's coming back, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, item D. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to add signage at 101 East Main Street, number 101. Item number 2022-038H. Ms. Dow?
Bob's recusing himself. And yes, this has come before you, and the lookalikes presented their sign, and you wanted to see what the overall sign plan was for the building. And so Mr. Petrinicola is here to speak to that.
Okay. Thank you. State your name and address, please.
Sure. Marcus Patronicola, 101 East Main Street. Just use the Katy address. Good afternoon, everybody. So you may recall we previously had this Katy Depot sign that we see on the slide before us approved. Just a quick update, we're probably about 2 weeks away from getting that installed. Everything's taking longer to manufacture, but shortly you'll see this sign, which is kind of the building sign installed.
The one that just says the shop's entrance?
That's right, it's the Katy Depot sign, and then below that, it's kind of hard to read on this slide. It says shop's entrance, and then points the, there you go, points the visitor to the entrance on the south side of the Katy Depot. So what we were hoping to achieve is we didn't want to put a bunch of signs sticking out of the building, around the building, but we did want to afford the businesses that are on Main Street the ability to add a little more exposure. So with lookalikes, what we kind of worked out was a small discrete sign that would stick outside of the building on the south side. We had it on the slide before. Yeah, thank you. To kind of give them the ability to say, hey, we're here too. And then we were hoping to do the same. There's 2 suites on the south side, one on the west, one on the east. And we were hoping to kind of limit the signage to those 2 suites that are right on Main Street to say, hey, we have a smaller sign, we're here. And that was basically the sign plan for the building. We did not, we were not thinking about asking for more signage like around the building with these other signs poking out, just the ones on Main Street. And then maybe add a little bit more detail on Houston and Woodard. We haven't made this request yet, but part of our idea was to have a sign listing the businesses there. We've not brought that before you yet, but that was the extent of the sign plan that we were contemplating.
I think one of the board's concerns was whether or not there was going to be a standard for the signs that the individual shops would put on the building. And are you saying whatever signs businesses want to put on the building are going to resemble this round one? Or?
Mm-hmm. I understand the question and the concern. Well, lookalikes is, we were going to let them choose their sign design, and then the second business would comply with that design as well to have a more uniform look.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, any questions?
So the enterprise on the exterior of the building would have exterior signage, but your tenants on the inside would not be signed on the exterior of the building, correct? What's their feeling gonna be about that? We saw a mock-up one time, the reason I'm asking,
Right.
we saw a mock-up that had the name multiple entities on it, and I'm only wondering, if your interior tenants might say, wait a minute.
Right. So you're right. We did at one point have that design in mind, and the way we approached it was that Main Street, with all the work done on it, we would try and be a little bit more discreet, and I don't know what the right term is, but have one Katy Depot sign and then have signs for the 2 businesses that are on Main Street. Keep it kind of clean that way. Then what we have not brought before you yet was a sign on Woodard and Houston, which would be not a pole sign, like a monument sign, which would then contain the name of the businesses, because it wouldn't be on Main Street. It wouldn't be as you know, we got some feedback that maybe having a sign on Main Street with all the businesses on it would be cluttered, and we kind of backed off of that, and we're going to propose to have that on Woodard instead. Does that make sense? So that's where the other tenants would get their signage from, and that'd be an area where a lot of the visitors would enter that visited those businesses on the inside of the building.
How many tenants do you have in there now?
10, I think.
10, and
Yeah.
how many you have space for how many total?
14.
Okay. So if all 14 want a sign, or would they bring it to us, or would they check with you first?
So-
To see what your thoughts are on that, because like what Linda says, you don't want a bunch of signs cluttering the building.
And we share that view as well. We're aligned there.
Not at all opposed to some sort of communal signage, and that doesn't, and I agree with you, having one really long one on the Main Street side is probably not the best solution to that. But if I were a tenant, I might say, well, wait a minute, you know, I want as much coverage on the street as these other people. I don't know. That ultimately, I suppose, will be something that might be of importance to us, but at this point, the relevant person involved in you, really,
And you're right, they do want that. And we were hoping to provide them with that, with the Woodard and Houston sign. And that would be a uniform design with all 14 tenants. I haven't brought that before you yet because we're taking it one step at a time, but that's our vision, is to have that sign on Woodard and Houston, and then just keep the signage on Main Street kind of clean, classy, and just limited.
Any other questions? On the motion? Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and this is for the lookalike sign.
Look-alike. I make a motion to approve the sign for look-alike at 101, is it West Main Street? East Main. East Main.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. There being none, the motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Donna, staff updates.
I don't have any really, other than another business was painting over the weekend, and I've got their colors. They're on the agenda already for next Tuesday at your regular meeting, and I've got the colors they're proposing, if anybody cares to see that.
Have they stopped painting? They're not going to paint the upper part anymore. They're just going to continue prepping, but they're not going to paint the upper until they have approval.
That's my understanding, but yeah, we didn't think they would be painting anyway.
This issue comes up again and again, and I don't know
Yeah.
the solution to it.
Well, there's,
Vigilantes, the painting vigilantes, they're not really done.
right, there's a $500 fine per day, and so, no, but we could, and so I need to figure out a procedure to notify them. So we were able to get word to them this weekend that they needed to get permission first. So,
When you get word to people in that regard, do they act startled?
Probably not.
That's a problem as well.
I don't know. We just, attempt to keep it civil.
Have we ever fined anyone for doing this?
I'm not aware of any fines.
No. I think perhaps that's something that should be looked at in the future.
Yeah,
Otherwise, like Linda said, you're gonna keep getting people doing this. And the business of doing this on the weekends, I understand sometimes there's manpower issues,
Right.
but I don't really think the weekend is a good time to be doing work on a facade on Main Street. Especially like I saw out during the Memorial Day Parade, when the gentleman was out there scraping paint off of Dance Explosion and painting it while people were trying to set up to watch the parade.
Unfortunately, I mean, just on my, you take the workers when you can get them.
Yeah,
especially right now.
I would expect them to use some common sense, but apparently they didn't. It is what it is at this point, but,
Well, it's difficult.
Get the workers in here.
Her building, that whole 400 block, as you know, we started in November. Coordinate everything with y'all's help and Don's help. It's a tedious process. You got
Right.
3 people, you got the landowner, you got the property owner, you got us, you got a contractor, and we try to cramp down as hard as we can, but things happen. So if they don't happen the way we want them, we're gonna go back and make it the way it needs to be.
Yeah, for the Memorial or for Denison. But I do think that there ought to be some discussion with council towards if people are painting the building without approval, maybe
Right.
imposing a fine.
right.
I went through a very humiliating and demeaning meeting one time over a certain building on Main Street that was painted the color that was not supposed to be painted. And they went ahead and did it before they were given approval. And supposedly it was repainted the color that they originally chose, but I don't think it was. And I feel like we're just being ignored.
Well, we've got a video and some steps that we can take, including, like this particular one was a new business owner or building owner. And so, they could have not known what the process is. And so we want to do something where when they close, they know. And so we've got extra steps to make sure that they are aware of it. And
Does the agent then, the real estate agent then assume that responsibility? At what point does the potential buyer know that there are going to be restrictions on the property that they buy?
well, it would be at closing. So right now, until we get there, we ask that the realtor know, and I try to catch them. But as you know, it's not been, ideal conditions lately, and we've been short-staffed in lots of cases, and so I didn't get to them before they did something. Well, I know, and it's been talked about for a long time, but I really think that we can do that now. It's become obvious, yeah. And so I think that we can take all these steps that we have needed to take to make sure they're aware of it. And then we're going to do a video. I've got a girl starting Tuesday and Thursday. We've got a couple of people to do a video lined up. And so that's on the historic preservation process for everybody.
So then maybe somebody will see this video at the permitting process?
We're just going to put it out there and make sure that as many people as possible see it. We're going to tell all our downtown business owners that they need to watch it. And if they don't, it's on them. The responsibility is on them, but we're going to try to get the word out. It's 325 in this case, but there's several cases right now that are out that haven't, but 325. And they are intending to get a grant, but not for the paint, maybe.
Well, another thing too about painting, there is no permit required to paint.
Right, but they still have to have,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
but if a person's bought a building and they're not aware of our requirements, then they, because there is no permit, so the city has no say-so over painting. So they
No,
can
but
paint.
if their building is in the historic district, they're required to come before this board before they paint.
I understand that, George, but they may not know that. That's what I'm
Well,
trying to tell you.
Yeah, and we've been wrestling,
So you can't rely on,
we've been
you know,
wrestling
if
with,
there's a permit process where, for example, Solomon's, where they're doing their building, there's a permit process for that, then they can find out the rules and regulations. But if they just buy a building and there is no mention whatsoever of a historical preservation board or a historical district, then they don't know.
you're right.
We got a lot of outside people
we've
coming
had
in buying
situations-
buildings, they don't know.
Right,
We've
so,
had situations, Charlie, where an owner has sold a building to a friend down the street, and the friend down the street isn't aware that it's an historic building or that there's certain requirements. So that's how they get through it.
I've got 5 buildings right now underway, all of them bought by people who came from out of town, unaware of anything until they walked into my office and I told them, this is what you're up against, this is what has to be done.
And-
Unaware, they closed on properties,
that's,
25 is one of them.
that's why we need to have it at closing, because we don't want them to be, oh, I wish I wouldn't have
Well, how
bought
do you
this.
control
They'll
that?
know from the.
How do you
first-
control that?
If they're a potential purchaser, I would want to know in the sort of initial vetting of whether or not I was gonna consider buying something, if there were certain restrictions upon it.
Right.
And getting to closing, to me, is a little bit after the, cow already left the yard.
Yeah, because they've got money invested at that point.
Huh?
They would have money invested at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible with commercial, but your residentials, you have HOAs. And those people are aware of those HOAs when they go to buy, and it spells out everything that they can and can't do in an HOA. So if that was something that could be attached to a real estate contract, just like I think HOAs are, if they could be drawn by an attorney that's legal, then that would be one way to make sure that anybody who put a contract on a building has those guidelines.
That's what I'm talking about.
Not to the contracting stage.
Well,
Which I think is
If
kind
you
of
come
late.
and you are going to lease or purchase a property within the city, oftentimes there are agents that are out of the city that don't know those things. However, if they are required to go to like planning and zoning, to find out if they're gonna be able to put a gas station on 100 East Main. So maybe there's a process that we can approach council with and put in that you must, if it's an historic society, you must follow the, abide by the rules. It's a simple thing we could put into planning and zoning to notify potential purchasers of property, even for leasing as well.
But I don't know how you do that because on contract, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the only thing that specifies on contract is the address and the lot and block. I don't think on a commercial contract it even mentions what the zoning district is that the
Charlie, I'm
building's
not talking about the real estate contract, I'm talking about prior to the real estate contract even being created, you do go before, or you do ask the question.
On new construction. On new construction. That's on new construction, but if you're just buying a piece of property,
It's not.
no, I can go buy a piece of property on Main Street. I don't have to ask the council for P and Z for anything.
But
I just have to sign a contract and go to a closing and pay the money. That's what I'm saying. The contract doesn't specify the zoning district, nor does it specify that it's in a historical district.
But prior to buying the building, would you want to know what it's to be used for? If you were purchasing a $500,000 building, wouldn't you want to know whether or not you could put a dress shop in? Or
But yeah, but that's part of the zoning that, again, it's zoned, downtown is what's zoned. But 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna look at that and go, well,
Maybe we need a specific zone for the historic.
they're gonna look at what, what the building is, and they're gonna just, I mean, seriously.
May I comment, please? When we purchased our buildings, when we were looking at buildings downtown and knowing what we wanted to do, we had no idea about any type of zoning. We assumed there was a type of zoning because it was in a downtown area, but as far as historical or coming before a board or any of that, we were green. We didn't know any of that. We were fortunate that the two buildings we bought were Ronnie Cole, who was the real estate agent. So he sold us those buildings. He took us into the DDI office, right? DDA office. And I met Tony Kai for the first time, Tom and I did, and we knew very well at that point that we were in a historical district, and there were certain guidelines that we had to go through. Getting new windows was the first one, and that was when I met you, was getting those windows approved. That was a disclosure from the agent, but he was the owner of the building also, so I don't know if it's just an agent that doesn't know anything about the building and they're just listing it without knowing.
Well, I bought mine from the trust, the Navy Jones
Yeah,
Trust.
see?
And you know what I got? Yeah, we'll take that deal, go sign those papers, it's over.
Yeah.
And then I walk in, you know, and I was just, the only reason I knew about historical was because I had a building at 125 West Main first. I didn't own it, I just rented, and I had a $1,500 sign made for them to be like, you can't hang that. And I was like, what? Hold on, we gotta get a permit. And I knew nothing about it. So, I mean, it's true, like, if you're new to this part of it, you just don't know whether you're leasing. And I was leasing and truly didn't even think past that, other than I put business downtown, and I was gung-ho and got ready to go. But it's true, like, if you're buying them out of a trust or something, you're not getting any information.
It still sounds like it's a zoning issue.
Well, we're going to find out what we can do to make sure that everybody's aware, including the business owners, because the tenants are, they need to know too. And
Even if they apply for a license, and, I think you're going down a slippery slope if you depend on the real estate agent, because a real estate agent out of Dallas, Texas, could list a building up
That's
here,
right.
and they don't have a clue.
Online.
So I just suggest that we go to council, express what the concerns are, and maybe get some direction from them.
right, there's got to be a multitude of ways that we can approach it, where if they don't find out one way, maybe they'll find out another. Okay.
Anything else, folks?
Do we know anything else on 327?
One more thing
Donna, where
I
they
might add,
cut the hole?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
is
sir.
that when they buy a new property, or they buy property, they have to transfer utilities into their name. At that point in time, that's where the city could intercept and say, now, you understand that if the event you try to modify or whatever to your facade, that there are steps, because it's in a historical preservation district, that have to be met. And they have to understand that, possibly even sign an information form that says, I understand that any modifications to my building must be approved by historical preservation prior to utilities being able to be transferred.
But at that point, haven't they already purchased the building?
Yeah.
So they're stuck if they
But
can't do what they want to do.
You can't transfer the utilities into your name until after you are owner of the building.
Yeah, well, that causes a problem right there, because I wanted to put in a bar in one of the buildings down here, and it's frowned upon, and here I find out that I'm not allowed to do that. And I already own the building, what do I do then? You're stuck.
What he's talking about is just an additional measure that we can take to be double sure that they are aware. So it's maybe not going to notify them, but it would make sure that they know.
That certainly would resolve everything, but
Yeah.
the case that you had where the building was painted without permission, that would pretty much take those cases away.
So, Kirsten, what did you?
I was asking you about 327. You brought it to our attention last week that they had cut an
I've
opening in the back.
communicated with them, and they've just not turned it in. So they know they need to, and
But they just haven't yet.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is that it? Thank you, the meeting is adjourned.